All right, so we're obviously in the thick of the NFL season, but Damian Lillard just got traded to the Bucks. So he's obviously teaming up with Giannis now. Is this more about Dame finally going to a contender, or is this more about the Bucks trying to please Giannis?
All right, well, I mean, this happened because Giannis put real pressure on Milwaukee. And I give credit to listen, it is very in vogue for NBA stars at different points of their career to criticize or take shots at how LeBron has conducted his business, and then when the rubber meets the road, to conduct their business in the exact same manner. There's a great tweet from Kevin Durant a few days after LeBron signed with Miami where he's like, what's up with everyone wanting to team up? You know, what happened to competition? Let's go at each other. And then 5 years later, when things are going a little tougher, Durant, of course, goes to Golden State.
And did it in the worst fashion possible.
In the worst fashion possible. Giannis was, you know, Mr. Loyalty, Mr. Milwaukee, Mr., you know, I don't want, you know, a super team. And then all of a sudden, you get the taste of the sweet nectar of a championship. You have a couple disappointing postseason runs, and you're out here telling the New York Times, I don't know what I'm going to do. Let's see how committed they are. Let's see if everybody cares as much of a championship as I do, which is a very LeBron move of I'm going to put my boot on the organization's neck and say I don't give a damn about a ninth grader to be named later in the form of a 2029 draft pick. I want stars around me. I watched other people hoist the title. I watched someone who I believe I'm better than in Nikola Jokic be nearly universally regarded now as the best player in basketball. This is bullshit. Get me better players. And they did. And I know there is some instant Damonza galaxy brain. Does this actually hurt Milwaukee? No, it doesn't. I am first team member of, card-carrying member of, Drew Holiday's underrated. Drew Holiday contributes more to winning than Kyrie Irving. I've been saying that for years. That Drew Holiday's two-way impact is almost second to none if you consider offense and defense equal parts of what he does on the, you know, at the guard position. One of the greatest plays in NBA Finals history was, I think it was Game 4 against Phoenix. It might have been Game 5, I'm not sure. The Drew Holiday steal with less than 30 seconds left. Yeah, the steal and the lob. Drew Holiday, if you remember the year they won, that year when they won the title, the Game 3 against Brooklyn, when they're down 2-0 to Brooklyn, and that game is coming down to the final moments. Drew Holiday had the game-saving defensive play. They go on to win that series. Drew Holiday has been a great player, okay? Mm-hmm. He also is not quite as impactful defensively as he once was. He's 14 years into the league. I mean, he's only in his mid-30s, but he came in so young. He just got baptized in the playoffs by Jimmy Butler, who was just mother-effing him up and down the court while doing it. And offensively, in the postseason, he at times has been a lesser version of himself. So I love Drew, and we'll get to Drew in a bit because I still think he can help a contender in a major way. I'm not denigrating him. But Damian Lillard averaged 32 points per game last year. And other than Steph Curry, who obviously not available, I would argue this, Damonza. Tell me if you agree.
What was that last part? I'm sorry.
Well, I said other than Steph, I would argue the following. There is not a superstar in the league that better fits with Giannis. there is not another guy whose game they complement each other better than Giannis and Dame. Because what's Dame's biggest weakness as a player, Damonza?
Was it defense?
Yeah, the defensive side of the ball. And where is Giannis arguably the best in the league at? Yeah, Giannis will cover that up there. When teams play Giannis, what do they try to do? Pack the paint, take away spacing. Well, when you've got a guy who can hit from 40 feet out with relative ease, you have instant spacing. So it is a hand-in-glove fit that instantly makes the Bucks the last few years have been great defense, average offense. They take a hit defensively, but now they can be a very good offense. And I would argue for Giannis, now his biggest utility for Milwaukee is not necessarily to try to win league MVP, to try to win defensive player of the year, is to have the lion's share of his energy be on that end. Giannis plus Brook will give you a good defense baseline no matter what, and Dame can be bombs away. So for Milwaukee, I think basketball-wise, it's great. I also think there is this element of it. I don't think this guarantees Giannis signs an extension. I think it raises the likelihood, but if Dame is under contract for 4 more years, Giannis under contract for 2 more years. I think Giannis is going to see how these couple years go and make sure Dame stays healthy and that Dame ages the way people hope he ages. And if not, he could bounce. But still, Milwaukee is doing everything they can do to keep their generational player happy. That is exactly what they're supposed to do. And for Giannis gets it. That there was discussions 2 years ago after he won the title. How high can Giannis climb on the pyramid? Can he jump Durant? Can he jump Steph? Can he jump Shaq? Can he jump Hakeem? That then stalled out for him. He then saw Steph win another title, and then all of a sudden folks are wondering, hold on a second, what if Jokic wins this year? Does Jokic then jump Giannis? The answer to that is probably yes. And so so Giannis felt real pressure, put that pressure then on Milwaukee. They responded, and I think they're the favorites now. I just think they're the clear favorites. Go ahead.
They're plus 350 to win the title right now.
And as far as a gambling perspective, there's not going to be good value betting the favorite almost ever. So I don't think I'd bet them at plus 350, but I do think they should be the favorite. All right, what other follow-ups do we have?
Jimmy Butler claimed that there was some tampering. Does anything seem fishy with this to you?
Okay, so I don't think there was tampering, but there are a few things that are at least worth noting. One is, shout out to Rob Perez, my pal, Worldwide Wob on Twitter. Great Twitter follow. For immediately tweeting out this video that I had forgotten of this past year's All-Star Draft. Did you see this floating around the internet yesterday, Damonza? It's great. So in the All-Star Draft, LeBron and Giannis are the team captains. And Giannis has the first pick. And for the reserves. And LeBron says, oh, I know who you're picking here, Giannis. Like, we all know, because Drew Holiday's on there. And Giannis picks Dame with Drew on the board. And LeBron says, like, has a wry smile. Is like, oh, I see what you're doing there. And this is something we had seen LeBron do in the past, picking Anthony Davis for the All-Star Draft. And then there were real signals being put out there. Chris Haynes reported that Giannis and Dame have talked about teaming up for a couple years. Both wanted the other person to come to their city, okay?
Right.
That's not tampering. So that I don't find fishy. Here's what I do find fishy. While I think Dame should be thrilled from a basketball perspective, we all know he wanted to go to Miami. And everyone was like, oh, Miami's offer stinks. Windhorst reported that the Ayton Nurkic trade they got the parameters of it a week ago. So you have to look at the Blazers getting Ayton as a separate transaction almost. Which means for Dame, what they got was Drew Holiday, a second-round pick this past year, and a first-round pick and 2 swaps. I don't think that's a great return. Now, you're going to get something for Drew. And I know Dan Lebitard reported this morning that the Heat believe Portland was simply going to take the best offer that was not from the Miami Heat. That they were pissed that Dame tried to force their hand, didn't like the way the Heat and Dame were doing business on this, and that they were simply not trading him to Miami flatly. If I were Dame, that would piss me off. Not because they sent me to a bad situation, but this is less than ideal for Dame in this regard. For the first one is obviously lifestyle, weather. Miami versus Milwaukee are pretty significant differences, but set that aside. If you're Dame as a basketball player, if you believe you can win a title in Miami and you can win one in Milwaukee, I would understand why Dame, the basketball player, would say, I'd rather do it in Miami, where a lot of people will say, I was the best guy. Nobody's going to say you're the best guy when you're on Giannis's team. It's like a former Blazer, Clyde Drexler, the best Blazer in franchise history, went to 2 finals, lost one to Detroit, lost one to Jordan and the Bulls, couldn't quite get over the hump, went to Houston, teamed up with Akeem, who had already won a title without him, and won the championship. No, and he was the second best guy and was awesome, but everybody knows that was Akeem's team. I get why Dame would have preferred Miami, and I'd be a little pissed if Lebitard's correct that the Blazers simply were not going to trade him to Miami. I'd be a little pissed about that, personally.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
100%. How devastating is this for the Heat fans? I mean, let alone Damian Lillard.
Doubly devastating. It's not just they didn't get Dame. It's that the Bucks did. So it's that I think one of the reasons the Heat were not putting all their chips on the table for Dame was their belief was just made the finals without him. Like, if we don't get him, we're still okay. But then when the team with the best player in the conference, maybe the league gets him, now you're in real trouble. You know what I mean? It's the
dire straits.
It's right. It's one thing to be like, we don't need Dame necessarily. It's another thing to be like, we're not gonna get him, and our single biggest competition in the East is gonna get him. I don't think they thought Milwaukee. Toronto was in this. If Toronto had gotten Dame, I don't think the Heat are panicking. They're like, all right, it's a bummer, but whatever. But Milwaukee gets him, you're in real dire straits. All right, now to the part of this. Go ahead.
Just kind of seems like these days that like these teams on paper, they look crazy, but they don't work out. Is what I've been seeing more often than not these days. But
so
you say
hold on.
that
Let's stay there. No, wait. Let's stay there for a second. Teams created out of thin air have not worked well over the last 15 years unless LeBron's been involved. Okay? The Heatles were created out of thin air, but you have Apex LeBron as the focal point. The Cavs were created out of thin air. You have near Apex LeBron as the focal point. Those worked. The Clippers created out of thin air, disaster. The Nets created out of thin air, disaster. This is not a team created out of thin air. This is the Milwaukee Bucks trading out Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard. Much like the Golden State Warriors traded out Harrison Barnes for Kevin Durant. The Los Angeles Lakers traded out Lonzo and Kuzma for Anthony Davis. You see what I mean? It's a different situation than all of a sudden. This is the created out of thin air super teams worked for the '08 Celtics and for LeBron's teams. Everyone else it is not, but I don't look at this as that. I also don't look at this as a super team. I look at this as two awesome players. Like, I think you've got to have three awesome players for it to be a super team. I look at this as two awesome players. And so, but go ahead. I know you want to talk about Drew.
So which contender should trade for Drew Holiday?
Well, all of them?
You.
But you go ahead.
Yeah, I think if the Celtics trade for whoever and end up getting Drew Holiday, I don't think there's a game that the Celtics will play the Bucks and lose. I think the Celtics would be really good with Drew Holiday. I think the Celtics
you would
are
trade
already
Brogdon,
really
who they've been wanting to trade. You trade some picks, and
right?
you listen. The Celtics are going to be involved. The Knicks are going to be involved. Okay,
Drew Holiday didn't want to go there.
I don't know that. I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. The Lakers are going to call and say in December, we can give you, we got to wait because we signed these guys. We can give you a pick, D'Lo, who's not that useful, and Rui, who would fit well. The Lakers will call. I'm not saying they'll get him. There's Wendy talked about, and I really don't want this to happen, a 3-team trade, Damonza, involving the Warriors, Blazers, and Team X, where Chris Paul goes to Team X, assets go to the Blazers, and Drew Holiday goes to the Warriors. Now, that would be scary. Drew Holiday on that Warriors team would be a scary situation. And so I hope that doesn't happen. I'll tell you another thing that I would monitor, just monitor. A 3-team trade involving the Mavs, Blazers, and Team X, maybe the Lakers, where Kyrie goes to Team X, call it the Lakers, assets go to the Blazers, and Drew goes to the Mavs. Drew is a better fit with Luka than Kyrie by a mile. Phil, you know what I mean? That's another one of those things that fits really well. My buddy that used to run the Mavs, Haralabos Voulgaris, who made, I don't know, maybe $1 billion by being, my guy, did you know anything about Haralabos Voulgaris? I would tell the audience a quick story. Haralabos Voulgaris basically has lived out my life stream, like my alternate life. He was the world's greatest NBA bettor. He 15 years or 20 years ago developed his own proprietary algo on NBA totals for over-unders and NBA sides, and was the most successful NBA bettor ever by a decent margin. Made millions and millions of dollars betting the NBA. Famously had the 8-seed Warriors beating the 1-seed Mavs before the series. Just had made millions of dollars doing it. Also, as his hobby, Damonza, was what I would call a semi-professional poker player. So, living good. He doubled, I don't even want to say doubled down. In the midst of that was a early, and I mean early, adopter of Bitcoin and held. So started buying Bitcoin when it was less than $1,000 a coin, some less than $100 a coin. And Bitcoin at one point was $65,000 a coin. Right. So he had all this money from gambling invested in crypto, and I think has held a lot of the crypto. And then in the midst of it, ran the Dallas Mavericks briefly, or kind of associate ran the Dallas Mavericks. He wanted them to trade for Drew Holiday. They ended up going all in for Kristaps instead. He then left the Mavs, cashed out some of his crypto, and God bless him, bought a yacht and a soccer team in Spain, and owns this soccer team. CD Castellan is using his same algorithms, tweaked obviously, to evaluate players that he used in the NBA on soccer. It had an amazing first season, hangs out on his boat with his awesome dog, occasionally stops by LA for big time poker games, and goes to every major NBA game, best seat in the house. If you look at the picture of the
about football right now.
Okay, well, I don't care. I'm telling a story, so go to hell. And so the reason I even thought of it was because Drew Holiday was the guy he pinpointed that the Mavs should go after pair next to Luka years ago. So I wonder if they'll be involved. But the question for the Blazers is going to be, are they going to hold him until December when everyone who signed this offseason is available, or are they going to trade him immediately? Go ahead.
Do you think there's any chance that he's playing for the Blazers in the thick of the season?
No, not in the thick of the season, but maybe the very beginning, because anyone that signed this offseason can't be traded till the middle of December. So there will be more players available and more trades available then. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.